Hello, everyone, and welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where it is that you are in the world. But wherever you are in the world, most likely it is December 21st. So my name is Brian Trescos. I'm the Director of Education here at the Somatic Coaching Academy. And I'm so glad that you've taken the opportunity to join me for just a couple of moments here today. If you haven't had a chance yet to like, share, subscribe to our live feeds on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, please go ahead and do that right now so that you're up to date on everything that we're kind of sharing out there in the world. Now, December 21st in the Northern Hemisphere, anyway, is the first day of winter. And when we think about the traditional Chinese medicine philosophy or paradigm, each phase of the calendar is associated with different phases of life, what we call the 5 elements. And so winter is associated with this idea of being the seed. If we think about it in terms of the planting season or the growing season, a plant goes through several different phases of its life. And the first phase is the seed, planting the seed. And then in the spring, the seed sprouts up through the ground. In the summertime, the plant produces fruit. And in the fall, the fruit is harvested. Of course, then the fruit is consumed and the seed then passes back into the ground and the cycle starts again. So this is a natural cycle that's been going on for millions and millions and millions of years, predating humans even. And humans, we sometimes forget that we are a part of the natural cycle of things. We have separated ourselves from nature in a lot of ways. We live inside of dwellings now, so that are heated all times of the year, regardless of what's going on outside, or we're heated or cooled, regardless of what's going on outside of our rooms. And so in a lot of ways, as humans, we've gotten away from nature. And one of the things that we've really gotten away from is this idea of the seed. So what the heck is the seed doing under the ground all winter long? Well, we might look at it and go, well, the seed's being lazy, right? It should be doing something different than it's doing. Or the seed should be working, or the seed is sleeping, or the seed's just hanging out, or the seed's doing whatever. These might be kind of Western constructs or projections that we put on something like the seed. Now, traditional Chinese medicine would say the seed is actually sending its energy inward. So the energy of the seed isn't just static. It's not stasis. It's not docile. The energy is being turned inward, and so that the energy is compressing itself and growing and becoming more powerful and more potentiated, if you want to think about it like that. So the energy of the seed, it's not like there's nothing going on. The energy is being turned inward and it's becoming this potential for energy. So all winter long, as the seed turns inward. So right now, in your gardens, in the ground, out there, in the apple orchards and in the fig orchard, wherever it is right now in the wintertime, underground, there are seeds, and the energy is being directed inward in this seed. And so what is the point of that? It's because in a few months, at the right time, the energy then will be turned outward, and the seed will then explode energy outward to grow a sprout to break through the earth in order to become the plant. So let's think about this for a second. What happens if the seed does not compress and consolidate and increase its potential energy? Then potentially in the spring, it won't have the energy reserves to turn outward and then push up through the soil, because it takes energy to push up through the soil and to break through the crust up into the world. So potentially, if the seed doesn't take the time or use that time wisely to compress its energy, it won't have the energy to push outward. So that's one thing. What happens if the seed decides to use its energy too soon? What happens if the seed decides to start to try to grow in February rather than in April to push through the ground? Well, the ground's frozen. It's hard. Maybe the seed hasn't contained enough energy yet. Probably the seed's going to die then, and it will not go on to producing fruit and producing more seeds. So like the seed could get its timing wrong. What happens if the seed waits too long to act? Like, what if it decides not to start moving up through the ground until like June? Well, then it doesn't get enough sunlight from the sun once it's burst through the earth in order to produce fruit and have a good yield. So every seed has a different timing. I get that. All different plants have different life cycles. I get that. This is generally the way that it works in the northern hemisphere most of the time. Okay, so I'm not a farmer by nature, so I can't tell you the life cycle of each plant, but this is basically how it goes. And certainly through traditional Chinese medicine philosophies, this is how we talk about it. So the seed has some really important things to do. It must take the time to internally compress the energy. Number two, it must time that transition from internal to external appropriately in order to have the greatest success rate. Okay, so let's think about humans for a second. So in the Western world, humans are addicted, or we're addicted to frenetic, outgoing activity, like doing all of the time. Got to get it done, got to get it done. If you don't believe me, just look at what we consume in the Western world. Like, look at the 5-hour energy drinks out there. Okay, so 5-hour energy drink, no dose. I was in New York City a couple of months ago on a trip, and part of the reason for going to the city actually was that my son and I could go and check out some different coffee shops. Really interested in that, so we went and did that together for a weekend. Super fun. But something I noticed while we were down there is exactly how many coffee shops there are in New York City. They're everywhere. And I'm not even talking about kind of high-end coffee shops to mid to low-level coffee shops, but just think about the amount of coffee that is consumed in our country. Specifically for the caffeine. So I drink a lot of decaffeinated coffee because I love the flavor of coffee, but I'm not super big on a lot of caffeine. So, but if you look at the number of people who strictly are drinking coffee to get caffeinated, like it's just like the coffee just happens to be a carrier for the caffeine. We are using stimulants in order to feed our frenetic go activity. I try this one on for size. Think about the disease, usually the first way that we treat almost all diseases in our country. So if you go to the doctor with a rash on your skin, he's going to give you some type of cortisone or to put on your skin. Okay. If we have congestion in our nose, we're going to shoot Flonase up there, which is a corticosteroid to open it up. Or we're going to take an antihistamine or something like that. So if you think about almost any disease process we have, usually our first line of treatment is a chemical or a hormone that is associated with a stress response or a sympathetic nervous system response. It's almost as if our bodies have gotten so used to being stressed that we don't even have enough of the chemicals that are designed to help us fight off disease in our bodies available to us. So we have to additionally add on more from the outside medically. Let's really start to think about this a little bit. We are chronically in activity, and I don't see much seed time happening in our Western world. And this really goes against what we call the natural law of rhythm. So the natural law of rhythm states that everything has a toing and froing, upping and downing, coming and going, tides, the phases of the moon, the seasons, everything is in rhythm. And those rhythms, they are according to nature. Like every year we go from winter to spring to summer to fall. It never changes. We never don't skip over summer. We don't skip over winter, kind of thing. Happens like that every year. The tides go in and out predictably all the time. Now we can't predict them to the moment, but we know that they're going to go in and out. Phases of the moon every month. We can predict, okay, it's going to be a partial moon, a gibbous, a waxing, a waning, whatever it is, but we know. So everything has phases. Now, as humans, we also have phases. Like think about the primary phase for women is, of course, the menstrual cycle. Now, men also have hormonal phases as well. So the circadian rhythm. So we're all in this sense of rhythm, okay? This sense of, yes, gosh, is here, right? So does the winter solstice. Gosh, that's why we're talking about this today, right? We're talking about potentiation of the seed and the law of rhythm. So how do we really mess this up as humans? Well, one thing is we just do not pay attention to this law of rhythm. And when we are in a chronic state of overdoing, now listen to me here, now really listen to this. When we're in a chronic state of overdoing, we will eventually be underdone. Okay, when we're a chronic state of overdoing, we will eventually be underdone. Now, what do I mean by that? It's because we cannot escape the law of rhythm as humans. We're not superior beings that live outside the laws of nature. And I see this, so I can tell you that a couple of times I've really seen this. So I've had the opportunity through my 30 years of working in healthcare and with clients, two primary things. Number one, I've worked with a lot of people who have had devastating injuries and or chronic illnesses, okay? Number two, I've worked with the people who've taken care of the people who have these devastating injuries or chronic illnesses. And I'll tell you one thing I see all of the time, and I'm not exaggerating when I say all of the time, is that when a person has a chronic illness, their caregiver, the person who's taking care of them, is giving so much of their energy to that person that they're taking care of. And it even shows up more drastically when it's a chronic illness that ends up with a person dying. The caregiver who's giving all of their energy to taking care of someone who is end of life care, and it can go on for years. What'll happen is, it's really fascinating. While the person is providing care for the other person, they almost never get sick. However, almost all of the time when the person passes away, the person who's the caregiver has a massive illness happen. They end up developing cancer, or they have a massive immune shutdown, or something happens where now they are left with literally fighting for their lives in terms of dealing with an illness. It happens so often that it's inescapable in terms of grabbing your awareness if you're really paying attention to it. So what the heck is happening? That person has been working against the law of rhythm for years and years and years. They were overdoing, and eventually they become underdone. We cannot escape. So how do we fix this? How do we address this problem? Well, let's think about the seed again for a second. If we are taking our time, if we're planning out times during the year or during the month or even during the week or even during the day in order to take our energy and compress it inward, to direct the energy that we've been giving out all the time, turning it around, bringing it inward, consolidating and increasing the potentiation for that energy in order to grow outward. This work is inherently somatic, by the way, because we're talking about our internal processing and energetic systems. So one of the things we help people learn at the Somatic Coaching Academy is how to turn that energy inward to create potentiation. The next thing we have to pay attention to is the timing of using that energy. Remember, if the seed goes too early or too late, it won't succeed. The seed knows exactly when to change and move that energy outward. So instead of fighting against the tide all of the time, oftentimes the way to success is knowing exactly the timing of the doing versus the timing of the internal reserves being created. So that's what we really need to look at in our life. So I would recommend maybe over the next couple of weeks, as we enter into this winter season, what is the sense of what's going on for you energetically? What is your body asking you for? Is it asking you to turn energy inward and potentially, regardless of what's going on outside of yourself? Now, I know we have to strike a balance. I know there's things that we've committed to externally, but really start to think about this, because remember, if you overdo, you will eventually be underdone. Let's use the law of rhythm to our advantage. Let's use it to grow our somatic capacity and be able to consciously direct our energy in a way that can serve both us and the world as well. So thank you so much for joining me for today for this. I guess we went a little bit longer than I had anticipated, but thanks for being here with me on our very first day of winter, getting very close to the end of the year. happy holidays to all of you who celebrate those sorts of things. Again, my name is Brian Traskos here at the Somatic Coaching Academy. Please drop a note in down below. We're seeing some great conversation here from Kasha and from Janice in the chat. Thank you so much for being here, to my favorite people. And remember to share this with your friends as well if you feel like these messages are powerful enough in order to help someone's life. All right, everybody. Look forward to seeing you again soon. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.